It was the early days of March, the time when new buds push forth from the branches, seemingly marking the ebb of the longest winter. I was standing on the precipice of a similar transition. Life had shaped the proverbial bud in me, and it was time to burst into full bloom. Time to take that emblematic leap. I was about to perform on the fresh, polished hardwood floor of the university auditorium, the only barrier between me and hundreds of anticipatory gazes. The sheer magnitude of the situation made the reality seem momentarily surreal. I was about to dance, and not in the saplings of my bedroom or the shelter of the dance studios I had grown accustomed to, but right here, under the white, glowing spotlight of public scrutiny. It was a decision that would set the tempo for a symphony of change that ran through my personal life and budding career. How strange the irony of life is, isn't it? Tucked between the crevices of daily mundanity, some moments distill our essence, coaxing us to confront who we are and who we yearn to be. It was an uncanny blend of these mixed emotions, an amalgamation of exhilaration cowering before fear, of uncertainty colluding with confidence. With every breath I inhaled, I was pulling myself apart from a precious chapter of my life. Each vibrant note of the music that would soon fill the room signified a quiet farewell to a cherished relationship. Yes, Jin-ho and I parted ways that month. We were both victims and victors of a passionate pursuit of our dreams that unabashedly demanded our undivided dedication. Love hung heavily between us, its weight tipping the scale against the enormity of our individual ambitions. Perhaps it's true. Love can't always conquer all, not when dreams dance tantalizingly at the edge of our sight. The rhythm of life was choreographing a dance of its own, leading me through its convoluted steps to the beat of my eager heart. And as I stood there, it felt as if each tick of the clock dictated the cadence of my accelerating pulse, a tender prelude to the crescendo of emotions that were soon to burst forth into an elegant ballet of movement and soulful expressions. In the crucible of change, I found myself melting, being reshaped one beat, one note, one moment at a time. Waiting behind the verdant curtain, the embers of anticipation flickered into the flames of resilience. As painful as it was, I knew that my decision to let go, to dance alone on the stage of life, was, oddly, a profound confirmation of my resolve. My feet were ready to trace the footsteps of my destiny. As they announced my name, I could feel the silent gasp of expectant silence seeping into the auditorium. The stage was set, the music cued. In the face of formidable beats of uncertainty, I was about to paint the canvas of my life with the hues of resilience and determination. Despite the choking nostalgia and the onslaught of doubt, I stood there, rooted to my conviction, ready to cast my shadows on the stage, under the all-seeing limelight. That day, as the old axiom goes, when one door closed, I was stepping into an open auditorium. In a time when delicate petals would dance their way to the ground, I dared to dance my way into blossoming on stage. It was my dance of change, of farewells and beginnings, of fear, and above all, courage. Yes, it was my spring day in March. April that year echoed with silent whispers of home. The cherry blossoms bloomed in a symphony of pink in the bustling city of Seoul, creating a spectacle akin to a beautiful impressionist painting. But I was enveloped by a sense of nostalgia that traced its way back to a quaint kitchen in Lyon. The golden hues of my father's French pastries, the mouth-watering aroma wafting through our home, blending seamlessly with the warmth of shared laughter and stories. Somehow, it all seemed worlds away. I found myself lost between the pages of an old recipe book one day. My fingers ran across the faded lines, a familiar sense of happiness washing over me as I unearthed the recipe for madeleines, traditional French pastries with a delicate, spongy texture. The shell-shaped desserts were a part of my childhood, often baked on lazy Sundays when my father would swap his office attire for an apron. He'd coined them as the comfort cake, and I had taken it upon myself to preserve that comfort, thousands of miles from where it began. I decided to bake them. It was a way of remembrance, a voyage down the memory lane sheltered in flavors and fragrances. The kitchen in my tiny apartment echoed unnaturally with the clinking of bowls and cutleries, a stark, almost sad contrast to the ambient warmth of my childhood kitchen. But there was a kind of raw happiness in sifting through the flour, in beating the eggs, in feeling the batter go from grainy to silky under my practiced fingers. Baking that day was less about the technique and more about the emotions anchored in the process. It was the memory of my father's careful fingers guiding my novice ones, his laughter ringing in our French kitchen, his voice humming the recipe. It was the promise of a sweet bite of home in a foreign land. I was not just a woman baking pastries. I was a 22-year-old girl seeking fragments of her past in the folds of the future. The end result was a tray filled with the sweet, petite treats. As I bit into the first one, it was almost as if time had retracted its relentless pace for a moment. The textural contrast, the right amount of sweetness, and the soft, fluffy interior transported me back to those countless enjoyable moments in Lyon. I was stuck in a beautiful moment, so starkly antithetical to the theme of changes that heralded my life at that time. For a moment, I was neither a university student wanting to excel, nor a dreamer yearning to stand on the shining K-pop stages. I was just Chloé Martin, a French girl with flower in her hair and a heart brimming with contentment. Not a lot of things make sense during a life-altering transition, but baking those dainty French pastries in a small apartment kitchen in Seoul somehow did. Yet, even in that moment of solace and remembrance of where I come from, I realized my cravings for growth. Each bite of the madeleines felt like cherishing the past, whilst whispering promises to the future. I longed for a mixture of the Korean street noodles with the homely French pastries. I was trying to blend the old with the new, just like my Korean-French lineage, rooting for an identity that held on to what was, but yearned for what could be. Ultimately, the day served as a blend of a comforting nostalgia and an anticipatory future, a reminder that the human spirit thrives in such complexities. While my second year in Seoul came with its fair share of turbulence, it also surprised me with unanticipated friendships. Towards the end of May, when the city was buzzing with the excitement of summer, I met Seoyeon, a fellow art scholar, who radiated an aura as soothing and warm as a late spring afternoon. An unlikely yet comforting friendship began to brew between us, something like the subtle friendship between the setting sun and the rising moon. Our friendship was mostly collage of mundane moments, punctuated by shared secrets and light-hearted banter. She was my complete opposite in many ways, reserved where I was outgoing, deliberate where I was spontaneous. Yet in our differences was the key to our harmonious synergy. Perhaps it was our divergent personalities, our shared love for arts, or the common ground of experiencing cultural shifts, something solidified our bond. The more I got to know Seoyeon, the more grateful I felt for having her in my life. She was like a lighthouse in the chaotic seas of university life, a source of reassurance amid waves of homesickness and pressure. We navigated the bustling streets of Seoul together, indulging in local cuisine and discovering hidden gems nestled within the city's labyrinthine alleys. Our excursions were less about the destinations and more about the experiences we shared. Every taste, scent, and sound around me seemed intensified by Seoyeon's quiet yet captivating presence. With time, Seoyeon taught me the beautiful art of balance, picking me up when I was low, grounding me when I was flying too high. Their friendship became my refuge, a sanctuary where I could retreat when things got too overwhelming. Our shared laughter, silent nods of understanding, and even our differences created an intricate tapestry that I cherished dearly. As the year progressed, the moments spent with Seoyeon became precious snippets of my life, a beacon of soft warmth that shone brightly amidst my tumultuous second year in Seoul. Her companionship was just what I needed to grow and flourish in this new city that was gradually feeling a lot like home. They say you can measure the quality of your life by the people you share it with. By that account, my second year in Seoul was the richest, all thanks to Seoyeon. A modest celebration that year did not dampen the enthusiasm of the event. It was my 21st birthday. My friends, a mix of university acquaintances, fellow expats, and some of my dear old friends from high school, laid out a small yet heartwarming celebration for me. I remember how they caught me off guard with a surprise party, nodding me into a room filled with delightful sparkles of fairy lights and the smell of homemade Korean food. They even baked me a beautiful birthday cake, covered almost entirely with chocolate frosting, and decorated meticulously with French macarons adoring the edges. My heart swelled with gratitude as everyone sang the birthday song for me, a chorus of Korean and French notes blending seamlessly as the expression of love transcended language barriers. With the room echoing with laughter and cheer, I blew out the candles, the soft glow reflecting in the hopeful eyes of my friends. As the night deepened and the room filled with the sound of soft music and mellow chatter, my eyes welled up with emotion, knowing these moments were ones I would treasure forever. The highlight of the day was when they handed me an album filled with snapshots of our adventures in Seoul, chronicling our university life and shared experiences. Seeing the candid shots of our laughter, the stolen moments of quiet conversations, and the radiant cheer of our celebrations reminded me how time had flown in this new city. Each page was a stroll down memory lane, a tapestry of youthful vibrancy and piercing moments of happiness and growth. The rest of the evening was a whirlwind of games, storytelling, and non-stop chatter that breathed life into the beautiful summer night. As the clock ticked towards the end of my birthday, we sat under the canopy of stars on the rooftop, reflecting on life's little vicissitudes, our dreams and aspirations, and the unspoken bond that we shared. At that moment, I realized that turning 21 wasn't just about growing a year older, it was about the connections we form, the experiences we cherish, and the person we strive to become. That night, under the sprinkling shower of splendid Seoul stars, surrounded by warm-hearted friends, I celebrated another year of my vibrant journey and many more to come, turning a year wiser and a heart fuller. The summer following my hectic month of July brought memories I'll vividly recall even years after. Living in a bustling city like Seoul, one would hardly expect it to rain heavily, but one evening it did. Suddenly, the city's rhythm altered completely, as if somebody tweaked the settings to slow motion. I still remember how it felt, the thick droplets hitting my face, washing away the sweat and stress of a day's grind at the dance studio. That unforgettable day, I was with my friends, aimlessly walking through the picturesque alleys of Seoul when the sky swiftly turned a shade darker. We didn't anticipate the rain, but when it came, it was the kind that would drench you to your toes, unrelenting and unforgiving. Despite this, we decided to embrace the unpredictability of the situation, rather than running for cover. We jumped in the puddles forming on the cobbled streets, our laughs resonating in the rain-roared silence. Our clothes were drenched, our hair plastered on our faces, but our spirits were unbroken. Instead, they were kindled like never before. Splashes of water rose and fell as we danced under the downpour, our heartbeats echoing nature's rhythm. It was a moment of joy, revelry, and shared silliness that made for a profoundly beautiful memory. Towards the tail end of August, another memorable event unfolded. I attended my first K-pop concert. Amidst the roaring crowd, lights flashing, music beating against my chest and resonating in my bones, I recognized my dreams mirrored on the stage. My heart thudded wildly against my chest as I soaked in every movement, every rhythm, every resonating note. The electricity in the air, the shared euphoria of the crowd, it was like a beautiful symphony, an orchestra to my aspirations. Witnessing these idols give their heart and soul to their performance. Witnessing the powerful connection they had with their fans, it filled me with a sense of longing, a sense of kinship. It was a reaffirmation of why I dreamt what I dreamt, why I worked relentlessly, and why I endured the rigorous training. I was already in love with music and performing arts, but that night, I fell in love with the idea of being an idol. My feet, despite their fatigue, ached to dance on that stage. My voice, however unripe it may have been at the time, longed to serenade the audience. The concert revitalized my dreams and filled my heart with anticipation for my goals, igniting a deeper level of passion for music within me. It offered me a glimpse into the life I aspired to live, and I knew then that there was no looking back. Together with the onset of monsoon season in Korea came my greatest victory. For the summer showcase at the university, I had been preparing for months behind the shut studio doors where mirrors held my intense practice sessions, isolating myself in a world consumed by dance. This year, it was not going to be a group performance. It was my turn for a solo. I remember feeling a surge of overwhelming anticipation as I stepped onto the stage, my heart firing off like a jackhammer against my chest. It was a blend of galvanizing adrenaline, fierce determination, and a strange calm that washed over me as I met the eager eyes of hundreds in the audience. The world around me stilled as the opening bars of my performance echoed through the priced silence, illuminating the rawness of the moment, the culmination of countless hours of practice and endurance. My body moved with innate familiarity, resonating with the notes and rhythm, each twirl, each leap, bound by the passionate story my dance narrated. There was a magical allure in the way I could influence the audience, their applause fueling my vitality on the stage. My mind was blank except for the dance, every fiber in me reverberating with the music. As the final beats died down and I struck the finishing pose, it was almost as if time had stopped, the silence deafening after the orchestration of my dance. And then roared the applause, the noise hitting me like a wave, breathtaking, for me, the humble protagonist of the evening. Gone was the shy girl who hid behind shadows. Standing on the stage, taking a final bow before the curtains fell, I saw myself metamorphosed into a bold performer, an artist who held the power to captivate a room full of spectators. I bathed in the spotlight, digesting the adulation, the electric atmosphere, the sense of accomplishment that tasted sweeter than any French Madeleine I had ever had. That night, as the university's star performer, I didn't just win an accolade, but also an affirmation of my capabilities and a validation that I was on the right path. Granted, I had to undergo a lot of trials, tribulations, closed doors, and intense practice sessions, but the applause that thundered in the auditorium that night conveyed a single message loud and clear: it was worth it. With the echoes of the applause still fresh in my memory, I felt ready to embrace the next season of my life. Little did I know then that I was inching closer to a monumental turning point. Bathing in the applause of the evening, the exhausted yet exhilarating euphoria of the performance was not the only thing I carried home. A lingering sense of gratitude seeped in, not just for the victory of that night, but for every failure, every critique, every tear that fortified my capabilities, molding me into the performer I had become. The thrill of the success entwined with the vibrant hue of fulfillment and self-assurance, it was intoxicating. In hindsight, I like to think that it was during my time at the university, and precisely this summer showcase night, that helped me find the me who was hiding under layers of self-doubt and fear of disappointment. Dance became the language through which I expressed, thus leading me to know myself in profundity. A connection between the mind, body, and soul. It was in the synchronized rhythm of these three elements that I found my solace, my rapture. Laying in bed, eyes on the ceiling that night, I replayed the echo of the final applause, my heart still resonating with the rhythm. They weren't just claps. They embodied an affirmation from the universe, a nod of approval, a sign that I was indeed chosen for this path. The sweet taste of success in the art that I loved made me thirst for more. I wished to touch people's hearts, to move them, to inspire them through my performances. The same way I felt when I saw people lost in their passions, I wished for someone watching me to feel the same. A palpitation that goes beyond the norms of human understanding, an instinctive bond that does not need words to communicate. It was what I aspired to offer. It was clear that my journey was far from over. Rather, in a way, it had just begun. With an ignited ambition and a clearer vision, I found myself rested and ready to leap into the next season of my life. Who knew what was waiting in the wings for me?